All right, let's get this party started. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Torn Tuesday, your weekly dose of all things Lord of the Rings, movies, news, games, books. My name's Justin. That's my co-host.
Hello there, this is Clifford right over here, and we're so glad to have you here on Torn Tuesday. Being the, front-facing video live stream for the OneRing.net, we are forged by and for the fans, just the fans of J.R.R. Tolkien and his wonderful books, of which, I've got some delicious stuff right here. Been surveying the letters of Professor Tolkien and looking at the second age through
He's
the
got books. I've got movies like this full
oh
screen pan and scan
oh my
square
gosh.
version, 480 interlaced theatrical cut of The Two Towers. Probably my favorite movie of all time in the best version of all time. And we have a special guest this week.
We
Right below us, you
certainly
can
do.
see our friend T with Tolkien. Hi, how are you?
This
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me.
this is so exciting to have you here, Caitlin. Welcome, welcome aboard.
Thank you. Happy to be
Uh,
here.
you have a brand new season 1 review that took 6 months to develop, and you still got it out before Cliff Broadway got his review out.
Isn't that lovely? Isn't that lovely? Now, you guys, you're gonna keep that ribbing going. Justin's gonna keep on ribbing me until there's no ribs left. But I tell you, I deserve it. But you folks at home, if you have not, you need to follow Tea with Tolkien, and you can find her on all the social media there, so you can get a delightful Catholic and spiritual perspective with a really healthy and lovely community of fine folks who are talking about their love of J.R.R. Tolkien. And now she's here with us because, yes, it is true. She published online on YouTube very recently thoughts and reflections from a unique and personal perspective on the season 1 of Rings of Power from Prime Video. And I celebrate that. I loved your video, Caitlin. I enjoyed it. I savored it, especially because I'm in great agreement with you on many salient points that you made in your video.
Really?
Yes, I so very much am. I can do in a Middle Earth without any jokes about going to the bathroom or, you know, just please.
It's
Right?
just
I agree. I
spoiling
can
later the
totally
show.
agree with that. But that's like the number one thing. I don't need toilet humor in Middle Earth. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Good. I'm
Thank you.
glad you agreed.
Well,
Oh
we've
yeah,
got
that
some we've
and
got
other
some
things too.
breaking news before we jump in to reviewing Caitlin's review. Are you ready to defend your dissertation?
Okay.
When you put it like that, now I'm really nervous.
I have a whole
It's
palette full of
it
post-it
is
Oh
notes
my
not.
god.
It is not going to be
prepared
like that. It is
for this.
not going to be like that. Okay, come on. But we do
Well,
have some interesting headlines in the world of Lord of the Rings and pop culture and what's going on. Justin.
yeah, let me get through those. All right, if you
Yeah.
saw the boss man Jeff Bezos was at Coachella with the Kardashians, and he
Oh
was
God,
wearing a
no.
shirt with butterflies on it,
Okay.
probably inspired by the butterflies that we saw in the final episode of Rings of Power, because Jeff Bezos is
Okay.
that much of a fan of Lord of the Rings. I'm
Were
not
they
going to
moths?
discuss it any more than
Oh
that,
no.
and
No.
and this is my head canon. He is wearing a butterfly shirt because he loves Lord of the Rings and he loves the show, and we're just going to leave it at that. Moving on.
Oh gosh.
Today
No.
was CinemaCon, a big, huge convention in Vegas for theater owners. And Warner Brothers announced, no Lord of the Rings things, Warner Brothers did announce it has the contract to release all MGM films overseas. MGM, of course, was purchased by Amazon, and they folded Amazon Films and MGM Studios together. So now MGM is now a theatrical film production and distribution company, but Warner Brothers is distributing all the MGM films overseas. Cliff, can you give us some perspective on MGM and Warner Brothers and how it affected The Hobbit? Did things crash here? Hold on. My my Zoom might have broken. Be right back. Oh yeah, it broke. Quit Zoom. Hold on. I'm coming back. Hold on. More evil magic at work. I'm glad you can hear me. Ah, jeez.
Delightful, delightful technical issues.
Yes. All right. All right. Back to Zoom. Where's Zoom? All right, you're back.
Okay, I'm back. Hello, everybody.
Yeah.
We're all back.
Yeah, you left us.
I know.
You did.
That was my fault. It's my all the jiggery pokery issues happening today are my fault.
No.
I don't know what's happening. Gremlins in the machine. This is what I get for making fun of Cliff nonstop. But Cliff, you deserve it because you owe the fandom your review. Did you hear, Cliff, the question I asked?
You can't make fun of me anymore because I've upgraded all of my equipment. I've upgraded my laptop, my microphone, my lights. Everything is fully upgraded. Now, I heard you say something about CinemaCon before you went dark.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. The news is...
And I was going to say, we, the OneRing.net, have a unique personal history with going to CinemaCon to get early news about the Hobbit trilogy.
Right. So that's what I was asking you. You are the only one here that's ever been to CinemaCon.
Yes, I have.
You were the first person in the entire world to see The Hobbit in high frame rate.
48 frames per second, super duper bright HFR, what they call it, HFR. And you know, CinemaCon is interesting because it's a special convention for theater owners. You know, the people who actually own and run the theater chains that exhibit the films. And what they were trying to do was convince the theater owners that they had a really good thing on their hands with the high frame rate. And it felt like you were watching video instead of watching film. It looked very different to the eyes. It looked like watching a video. Oh my gosh, you know, it was that kind of thing.
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know?
Because I remember your phone blowing up because all of us wanted to know what this stupid little thing that Peter Jackson was doing with our beloved Middle Earth.
Yes.
And what was the gut reaction in the room with everybody there? And then your reaction.
The gut reaction was, the funny thing is that Peter Jackson appeared, tried to explain to people, it's going to take a few minutes for your eyes to adjust to this and for you to get used to what this looks like. So they showed like a long 13-minute clip from An Unexpected Journey and other bits from the Hobbit trilogy. And I'm telling you what, the first reaction was, gosh, this looks weird. It looks like a Spanish telenovela. The first reaction was, it looks like video instead of looking like traditional film. And they were just trying to convince theater owners that it was a wise decision to change all the equipment and get the new projectors so that they could exhibit and show the 48 frames per second. I didn't really love it all that much. I did not love the high frame rate presentation of The Hobbit all that much. I really didn't. You know.
But how important is CinemaCon? Like, who is in the room for this?
All the big players, the people who run AMC theaters, Regal Cinemas, and Cinemark, and all those big companies, and even all the little mom and pop, smaller regional theaters. These are the people who have the space, buy the projectors, they get the seats clean and ready, they hire the staff, and they sell the popcorn. These are all theater owners. And if you cannot convince them up front that you've got an excellent business model for doing 3D exhibition of films, then there's nobody else in the industry that you need to convince except the theater owners. You have to convince. I mean, go back in time to the prequels when George Lucas was trying to put out digital presentation of Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and he had to struggle at a show like CinemaCon to convince all the people invest in this. You got to change from 35 millimeter film projectors, and you have to change to this Texas Instruments device, which will run off of a digital brick, and it will digitally project the Phantom Menace. And all the theater owners had to be convinced about the viability of getting into this new technology before the Phantom Menace could come out. It was the exact same business problem that Warner Brothers and MGM, New Line Cinema, they had to convince the theater owners to upgrade to do high frame rate showings of The Hobbit. And everybody's initial gut reaction to it was kind of like,
was it 3D and high frame rate, or just high frame rate?
Correct. It was 3D and high frame rate. Yes. Right.
I wish now that I have a gaming PC and I play a lot of games in high frame rate, 60 frames per second or 144.
Yes.
I wish that they would re-release The Hobbit on a version that was high frame rate, no 3D. I do want to see it as Peter Jackson shot, but we just heard a reaction from Caitlin. What was your opinion on high frame rate?
I don't have one. I have absolutely no opinion on frame rates. I'm so sorry.
This is the quality opinions that you can look forward to in her season review.
Stop. Okay. No, but seriously, Caitlin, did you ever see the high frame rate version of The Hobbit when it was in the theater?
I don't know. I saw it in the theater. Is that the high frame rate version? I have no idea.
It didn't last. Only a couple of theaters in major cities bothered.
I saw it in Phoenix, Arizona. That's kind of a major city. I saw the midnight premiere, so maybe. I don't know. It was so long ago, and I think we all know I didn't super love the Hobbit movies. So
okay. Fair enough. That's totally fair. Well, as it turns out, look at how many movies right now today are being released in high frame rate. In fact, none. It was a technology that never took off. It never went anywhere.
Interesting.
We haven't seen any other films until recently. James Cameron released Avatar: Way of Water. And guess what? Some of the film trades off from regular frame rate at 24 frames per second up to 48. And it switches back and forth into different frame rates throughout the entire runtime of Avatar 2, The Way of Water. And that's honestly...
Did you like that better than the Hobbit version of high frame rate?
Yeah, I think that worked better. It really did.
Well, and one of the reasons James Cameron hired Weta to do Avatar 2, 3, 4, and 5 is because of Peter Jackson's high frame rate. So they are using the same technology that Peter developed on The Hobbit. So basically, The Hobbit had to be the guinea pig for this technology that it is getting better and we're growing to love with Avatar. And I thought it was well done in Avatar. And I do like it now more after Avatar. And that's why I wish there would be a re-release of The Hobbit in high frame rate, no 3D. But that's my opinion. So basically, Cliff, back to the news. CinemaCon had zero news on Lord of the Rings.
And that is news itself. The fact that all options that Warner Brothers Discovery and the Embracer Group have on the table, nothing was discussed. They didn't say anything about the upcoming animated feature film, War of the Rohirrim, and they certainly didn't say anything else about other secret projects that they have designs on. We did get a splash title card for Beetlejuice 2, the sequel to the classic Tim Burton ghost comedy with Michael Keaton. So there's going to be little drops of information that come out of CinemaCon. It is the kind of place where they would normally have dropped in a big surprise announcement about Lord of the Rings something or other, but there wasn't a drop of information at the whole weekend convention. Not a speck of information about anything Lord of the Rings at all, which is a bit weird.
It is doubly weird because this is the last CinemaCon before War of the Rohirrim is supposed to release early next April. And usually they preview every movie between this CinemaCon and next CinemaCon. So they previewed everything from like a logo for Beetlejuice 2 to Barbie to Dune 2, and everything in between.
Yeah. There's all the YouTubers are making a lot of new content about the preview of Dune 2 that Denis Villeneuve and Warner Brothers dropped at CinemaCon. Why? Because they're trying to get theater owners excited about getting big movies out in the auditoriums again. They want the business to get back to where it was pre-COVID. They're trying to drum up the interest in this.
This is my question to you, Cliff.
Why Lord of the Rings? Why not use Lord of the Rings to drum up the interest? Exactly. Why not use the biggest, most powerful fandom for the biggest intellectual property that you've got? Why wouldn't Warner Brothers say anything about Lord of the Rings? Anything? Oh,
well, Cliff, I think
it's just so weird.
Cliff, I think our chat room is on the same page that I am, and I wasn't going to go there, but the chat room's already there.
Okay.
I think there is a valid reason that they did not even mention Lord of the Rings. No. And I am hesitant to say it, but
What's the reason, Justin?
I wonder if War of the Rohirrim is going to get delayed. I don't think it's going to get canceled, but we're talking about Warner Brothers that canceled a Scooby-Doo movie, a completed Batgirl movie, a Warner Brothers that took Westworld off of its HBO Max streaming service and all of its other popular shows. We're talking about Warner Brothers that's made hard cuts. And Cliff, the fact that you have Rings, you have Lord of the Rings in the zeitgeist. Rings of Power is $1 billion show. Warner Brothers just got the rights back to make 12 new movies or whatever for the next 10 years. And they don't even mention Lord of the Rings. They don't even give an update like, hey, we're still exploring, the next steps. They didn't say anything about Lord of the Rings. And they're supposed to be halfway through completion on the War of the Rohirrim anime movie starring Brian Cox and Miranda Otto. This tells me, Cliff, am I wrong? Will we get some bad news soon? Or good news? I don't know.
Do you know what? I think it's not necessarily a harbinger of bad news. Maybe this is just an abundance of caution, because you know how they love to play their cards close to their vest. But if they have not made some concrete decisions yet, what if they haven't made enough decisions to say, here is our full programming plan. Here is our full hierarchy of creatives, talent, projects. Boom, boom, boom. If they don't have their shit together, pardon my language, please forgive my unnuanced language. But if they don't have it together, then maybe they don't want to give the impression that they don't have their stuff together yet. You know what I mean? Maybe it's just an abundance of caution before they can say more like the very carefully calibrated presentation that James Gunn and DC Movies has now presented as a front-facing bit of information. Maybe Warner Brothers Discovery is waiting to have someone else as an equivalent who will be like that to make a much more careful and articulate video statement, or perhaps another big press release. But it is weird. It's very, I think it's weird that to not get the theater owners excited about the fact that you've got intellectual property control over Lord of the Rings stuff being exhibited theatrically, and to miss that opportunity at the CinemaCon is still weird. But it might make sense that they do not have the hierarchy of talent, projects, resources, and a specific plan. Maybe they're not ready yet.
I didn't expect them to be ready so quickly. It's only been a month or two since they announced that they got the movie rights back. I do expect that they would have some ducks in a row by San Diego Comic-Con in July. But my final question to you, Cliff, on this. James Gunn announced today at CinemaCon that the DC movies that are coming out this year, Aquaman, The Flash, they have all been retooled to set up the next phase of the franchise. He said that it connects to the whole that he is building. Let me ask you, Cliff, do you think it would be wise if whoever they get on board to manage Middle-earth, say it's Peter Jackson, do you think they would retool and reanimate some stuff in War of the Rohirrim to prepare to blend in to the future franchise?
That's quite possible. That is entirely possible.
Are you willing to wait longer for it?
I'm willing to wait for the announcement that a very smart and amazing, talented woman like Philippa Boyens would be able to come in and be that person. Instead of Peter Jackson, let the next Kevin Feige be someone like Philippa Boyens. You see what I mean? Because, Peter's too busy doing other tech stuff and being a film nerd and directing other big, weird projects. And, his partner is camera shy. She doesn't want to be in front of the camera, but Philippa doesn't mind. Philippa Boyens knows how to finesse the media. She knows how to talk to reporters. She knows how to talk to fans. I think she'd be a fantastic asset as a person at an executive, creative position. What do you think, Caitlin? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, from everything you've said, I think so. I don't know as much about the movies as I do about the books. So really when it comes to like the Lord of the Rings movies, I've just been enjoying them for what they are. But I haven't like really learned all of the lore of all of the background, like everyone who's worked on it and stuff like that.
Yeah. And a lot of people haven't.
I'm not as familiar with all that stuff.
This is kind of like we're in the third phase of like media fandom for Lord of the Rings. You had, the movies, and you had the books, and the anime films, and you had the movies. And now we've got this kind of third generation, which is coming in through Rings of Power and rereading and rediscovering thing. I will say this one last question from the chat room comments about would they put War of the Rohirrim on HBO Max or Max? And I can equivalently tell you that will not happen. That will never happen. At CinemaCon, the CEO of Warner Brothers said they are in the theatrical business. They heard all of the complaints. The data does not show that it makes good business sense to release a movie direct to Max. And remember, the rights to Lord of the Rings are split.
Okay.
So Warner Brothers cannot legally release a movie direct to home video or direct to streaming because it's complicated. So this is the War of the Rohirrim is meant to be theatrically shown. Its current release date is April 12th, 2024. So this literally was the last CinemaCon before the release of it next year. And with a big franchise like Lord of the Rings, it's very weird that they didn't mention anything, not even saying that they're on track to deliver it next April. So I wonder if we're going to hear some news about Rohirrim, and I expect it might be delayed. And also, just from a creative standpoint, Cliff, doesn't the story of Helm Hammerhand take place in the winter, which would make War of the Rohirrim a really neat Christmas movie?
Stop it.
Okay, moving on. We've got other news.
I will before we go on to that next headline, I would like to say maybe it's okay to give the animators more time. Heavy duty work, and I mean very painstaking heavy duty work, goes into 2D hand-drawn animation. So let the animators have more time. I don't mind if it's a delay of a few months, but I certainly would not want to see Warner Brothers do anything stupid or weird, like abandoning the project, like they've done in other high-profile circumstances. And, Justin, I appreciate you citing those moments, but it's not really a logical indicator yet that War of the Rohirrim is in any danger of getting spiked at all. As a major project, we still anticipate it's going full forward, but with the absence of any news or information at a major industrial event like CinemaCon, maybe it's just time to be cautious, and hopefully they're going to let the animators have more time. If it's a little bit delayed, great. That's fine too. I can wait a few more months for it to be better. I can wait. As Thranduil once famously said, I can wait.
And the final thing about Rohirrim is that it's an anime film animated in Japan, and there is a current anime film that's blowing up the box office. It's made over $300 million worldwide in the last month, and that's just only 5 million of that has come from the US. So anime has become a worldwide sensation in China, Japan, Korea, huge markets now. So this movie has potential. If it can make as much as what other anime films are making now along the Pacific Rim, and then add another 100 to 200 million in America, I mean, we're talking, 500 to $1 billion box office on an anime film if they do this right.
There are generations of Tolkien fans who were brought into their love of Tolkien with animated films. Mm-hmm. This was way, way before Peter Jackson took a crack at making those big 3 Lord of the Rings movies. Our doorway into Middle Earth was always an animated version of The Hobbit or an animated version of The Lord of the Rings. That's what we had in my generation. And so speaking for myself, maybe nobody else, but I'm so delighted at this concept of War of the Rohirrim being 2D animation. I'm really, really excited by that. It's going to be great.
All right, moving on real quick. Big rumor just confirmed for the first time in print. Richard Armitage, Thorin Oakenshield, has officially come out publicly. We don't normally talk about people's public lives because that has no bearing on anything. But this is a huge, huge thing for representation, and all of those AO3 ships with Thorin and whatever character now take on a greater relevance. I don't know. Relevance.
Relevance.
That's the word I'm looking for. And then a couple hits before we start getting into the Rings of Power Season 1 review. Season 2 is currently filming in the forests outside Surrey. This is what they look like, posted by... I'm not going to say that photographer's name, but this is the forest that they're currently shooting in. Very moody, very wet, very... I don't know. This does not feel like... if they color graded this could be a forest under smoke and shadow in Mordor, but we don't know. So they're currently filming. And then another thing, and Cliff, gosh darn it, for the last 6 months, I've been reporting...
I think that forest looks pretty cool, actually, but yeah.
Wait, I don't see it. Is it on the stream? I can't see it right now.
It's on, yeah.
Is it that one that looks haunted?
Yes, the one that looks haunted.
Yes.
It does look like... That's
going to be fun.
Doesn't it look like a real misty, haunted forest?
Yes.
It's really
cool. I hope there's some very scary things happening in it.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah, it looks amazing. Now, Cliff...
and someone in the YouTube chat says, that's just England.
Yeah.
Just the entire country looks like a haunted forest. And, that's just England. No, come on. That's funny.
Now, Cliff, for the last 6 months, we've been reporting Green Dragon gossip as simply that. It's gossip. It might be wrong. It might be right. And as we reported after Season 1 came out, we had a pretty good batting average on the leaks and the rumors going into Season 1 and all the stuff that we reported. Now, for the Season 2 leaks and rumors, again, Green Dragon gossip is what we've been hearing. And I personally have been seeing Ismael Cruz Cordova here in Los Angeles for the last 6 months. So I was shocked, I tell you, to see this spy photo from the set featuring some of the actors from...
That is Maxim Baldry. And the new actor, I don't know her name.
Nia Toll.
Yeah, and there they are.
Oh,
that means
yes.
That's there you go. Just to prove to everyone that Isildur really did not die in the house fire.
I mean, yeah, we all knew he didn't.
No, that's the joke. The joke is remember how lame it was in the Two Towers when Peter decided that he would take Aragorn and have a warg drag him off the cliff, and Aragorn's dead for one half of the Two Towers, and the rest of us in the audience are going, no, he didn't take a tumble. We all knew better. We are all the rest of us regular Ringer fans are in the audience knowing better about Isildur as well. We know he didn't die.
Y'all thought I was going to show you a different picture, but Cliff, this is a huge spoiler. I mean, they left at the end of season 1. They left Isildur dead, and his dad was walking off the battlefield
in tears. And, Lloyd Owen broke my heart with that look in his face, thinking his son was gone.
I don't.
But you know what? It's a red herring. It's just a bad red herring.
I think they were just trying to kind of replicate the movies once again. They were like, oh, we had this similar thing happen with Aragorn. Let's, give it to Isildur as well. And then, I'm at 2,000% sure his horse is going to go find him, and we're going to have a horse scene.
Just like Aragorn? Are you kidding?
I want to see Max and Baldry making out, just like Vigo was kissing that
with horse.
This is a very friendly horse.
So this photo from Redanian Intelligence has a new character and a new actress that we've never seen before. Cliff and Caitlin, is Isildur's wife ever named in the books?
I don't think so, right?
No, I do not.
Isildur's unnamed wife.
I have no memory of this place, as Ian McKellen would say. No, I have no memory of Isildur's wife getting a direct mention. And, that's one of those odd things. Usually there's a family tree. Let me grab the appendix and see if there's a family tree that mentions a name on the side.
Yeah, you do that.
I have over here.
I love that all these book nerds have all this
I just have
paper.
Unfinished Tales. Not very helpful.
I've got this paperback copy that Amazon
all right,
sent me.
While you're looking up for that family tree, Caitlin, without getting too in the weeds, I've been a big proponent of this show allowing its characters to date, not marry. Do you think this is Isildur's wife, or is Isildur allowed to date a few women before he finds the right one?
I don't think we have enough time for him to date around. There's only 8 episodes in each season, and we have to at the end of the show, he's going to be deceased, and he's going to have his children. So for that to all have been, done by the end of the season or the series, I just don't think that they have time to introduce, here's Isildur's girlfriend. They break up. I don't know, that to me, I'm not interested in that. And I just don't think there's time.
Yeah, so you're okay with them just accelerating, if a character meets someone that we don't need to see them on again.
We saw the picture together. We saw the leaked photo, and we're like, there's his wife. So in my mind, they're already married. So,
what is the chat room? Do you want his first companion to be his only companion? I think the television, the medium of television, allows you more time to explore. Isildur doesn't yet know what he wants out of life. He doesn't know if he wants to be a sailor. He doesn't know. He's caught in between worlds right now. Okay, and I feel like there's a lot of character development they could play with.
Maybe I don't know. There's just not every time you introduce a new character, it's kind of like a whole thing. Every time you have to cast someone, and you spend so much time writing the character and getting everyone comfortable and acquainted with the character for them to, I don't know. And I kind of thought with season 1 how many new characters there were, that a lot of them were going to get killed off, and we still have most of them. So it kind of seems like they're, whatever characters are being introduced are kind of going to be there to stay for at least a while. So I don't know. I know you want to see everyone dating around, but my guess is that that's just probably going to be his wife. Maybe they'll break up and there'll be some drama, but I don't know.
That's I'm okay with that. I do want to see some messy breakup drama. A comment from the chat room says, the Chiv Knight says, I want unrealistic expectations for finding a significant other. Do you think
what?
Explain that in the chat room, please.
Like he's gonna be like, she's not. I don't know. Well, she's not a Numenorian, I'm guessing. So is he gonna be like what's that? How's that gonna be? And I wonder if they're gonna kind of play at like Aldarion and Arendis, how like Arendis wasn't from the line of Elros, so there was kind of like a weird, like, I don't know, not like class struggle, but like they're different. And I wonder if they're gonna kind of try and do something like that with him having like a Middle Earth wife. I don't know.
Great question from the chat room. The conversation has turned to, she is not Numenorian. She's obviously not Numenorian. He's still trying to make his way out of Mordor, right? And he's got scars on his face, so this is fresh out of getting rescued.
Well, according to the lore, Isildur did take a wife in Numenor, and he was married in Numenor before the downfall of the continent, the island.
Well, he could bring her back to Numenor, and they could get married there. So,
right?
Does Aragorn's lineage, does his lineage demand an actual Numenorian, or?
I don't know, because if Isildur is a Numenorian, that's
actually, this might be a tendency.
You know where I'm going with this? Yeah,
I am. Yeah. But as a medievalist, come on, let's admit, as a medievalist, I think it might have been Professor Tolkien's tendency to indicate family lineage and heraldry by the male members of the royal line, because that's typical of medieval, construct.
XOXO in the chat room says, I'm in the wrong fandom if I want relationships.
Maybe it could be something like, she's not from Numenor, she's not good enough for you, kind of thing. But we already have, I feel like, so many like forbidden romances. Like, do we need more? Like, we already have Arondir and Bronwyn. Like, how much more do we need to like get the point across? I don't know.
And this is the impossible task that the showrunners have, of that, whatever they choose to do here with these two, it's not going to please everybody. It's not going to please me if Cliff gets what he wants, and if Cliff gets what I don't know.
Good gravy.
It is good gravy. It's bad gravy.
Come on. No,
it's strong gravy.
Just quit the quail sauce and just give me the meat. Now, hold on a second, guys. Are you going to seriously tell me, Justin, that you would be disappointed if the show doesn't do all these like stupid like soap opera twists and turns of dramatic young relationships gone awry? And that's not the wheelhouse of J.R.R. Tolkien. That's not what we go to his books for. Why would we go to the television show for that?
Because the television show can do something that the books can. And look, again,
oh dear,
the chat room.
That's true.
the chat room is joking about something that I was authentically going to bring up, which is that's Sauron. She could be Sauron. Sauron deceives everybody in different ways, and
at this point she could be Sauron in
honestly
disguise.
Like,
yes, she could be.
After everything season 1 threw at us, like, sure, anyone could be Sauron. Sauron can do whatever he wants. Like,
yeah. And we also can anticipate that they're going to do more Where's Waldo, where season after season we're all looking at different characters, suspecting that might be, Sauron in disguise. I guess
this is the stuff this is why, like, messy boyfriend-girlfriend relationships sounds CW. It is CW, but it does allow for some of these things to be explored, like Sauron taking on so many forms. He's got, 17 rings to distribute, or 16 rings to distribute across all the leadership, and at some point he corrupts Isildur. So, he's gonna
do...
You know where I'm going.
Yeah, I know where you're going. But
everybody's boyfriend or girlfriend to give out the rings.
The rings are all relationship related.
No.
Gosh, no. You're funny. Funny.
Okay, so all right. Final word on this photo. It's a new photo.
The photo. He looks so much like Aragorn in it, and I'm like it. like you can see he's like growing into Aragorn's, I don't know, like they're obviously trying to make him look like Aragorn, and I feel like they're doing a good job. And I was really surprised because I didn't really see it with season 1, but I think that's because he's a lot younger. Because they filmed it like, I don't know, however many years ago.
I agree.
I'm very intrigued by this ghostly voice that he's been hearing in the distance. I do find myself just as intrigued by some of the cool stuff in season 1 as much as I like to complain about some of the daft choices they made. But yeah, that's one of those things is where is Isildur metaphysically going? What are the metaphysics here? Is he being called by a spirit, a ghost? Is he listening to something which is an inner voice that is calling his name? I don't know, but I do find it intriguing.
The final detail I should point out in this photo is they're not holding hands. So we could be reading into it things that just aren't buddies. There. They're just buddies.
That's true. That's possible.
She might be a guide out of the area because he's not familiar with the area. And they remember the elves were called back by Gil-galad. So there's no elves there, to guide the way. So he's got to rely on local knowledge.
It's interesting that she's wearing purple because, like, we noticed all of the Southlanders were wearing a lot of like grays and browns, but then Bronwyn had like bright blue. So I'm assuming she's going to be someone more important since she's wearing like kind of a different color than everyone else.
Oh, that's a good point. And I do like the colors. And I don't agree with some of the comments in the chat room that these look cheap. These are people on the run after a big volcanic destruction in the Second Age. Like, it's supposed to
nice.
It's supposed to look like this. Like, I'm on board. Yeah. The complainers about costumes really cool. Are just looking for a way to hate, says Dan Edwards in the chat room.
Well, also, the fact that the father, Elendil, is still under the burden of a false assumption that his son is dead, it's going to make an impact on his decisions while he's back in Numenor. And that's going to be interesting to watch in season 2.
I'm looking forward to that.
All right. Well, the reason we have Caitlin on today is because she has posted a wonderful 30-minute review of the 8-hour Rings of Power Season 1. And very few people have reviewed the entire season. It took Matt, Nerd of the Rings, 5 months, and Cliff still hasn't done his.
That's right. That's right.
I guess my top line question, Caitlin, is why did you have a lot to get off your chest? Like, why put out a whole review for the season?
Well, I had always wanted to do a review, but as a lot of people know, I had a baby 2 days before the finale. So a lot of sleep deprivation was occurring for me over the past couple of months. So I wasn't like fully processing things very well just because, I was up with the baby. So now that she's like sleeping better and my schedule's doing good, I feel like my brain is adjusted. I just had time to put it together. It's kind of been something I've been working on this whole time. Like I had a document that I was adding my thoughts to. But I'm really glad I waited so long because I feel like now that I've had time to like mull it over and think things through, I really enjoy it a lot more than I did at first. Like I said in my review, like especially after I think it was episode 7 where Galadriel just like mentions Celeborn out of nowhere. I was like, I hated this episode because I was like, what? I was like pointing at my TV like, what is this? Where did this come from? I was like, I had a lot of like really strong reactions. And so I'm glad that I gave myself a lot of time to cool off and just like think things through more calmly. And then I really do think that the more I think about it, the more some of it makes sense, or I'm able to see where I think they might be going. So I'm more able to be like, I just want to see where it goes. I'm kind of along for the ride rather than being like super angry or I don't know, like super critical. I just feel a lot calmer now, I guess.
I appreciate that. I do appreciate that. The more distance you have, I think the better and more refined my perspective is getting. And you felt that too. It's kind of like I can appreciate saying things with more of a tempered approach. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so.
Is it possible that you might have watched Rings of Power more than anyone else that we know?
It is possible. I've probably watched the whole season at least 10 times.
Is it just background noise as you're taking care of your children?
Yeah, like I'll just like, or sometimes if I'll have like if I'll be like working in my room, like sitting at my computer, I'll have it on the background, or like yeah, a lot of the time, because you're just holding a newborn, like they don't do anything, they don't really need you to like talk to them or anything. So I just like was watching Rings of Power, thinking about Rings of Power. It really like wormed its way into my brain in a way that I hadn't experienced with any kind of media before. So it was very odd experience.
That I'm looking at my notes that I took while watching your video, and I said I think, you know, getting the big things that I think Cliff and you can agree on out first is the Mithril origin story. Now that you've seen it 10 times, does it get any better?
So the more I think about it, I really think that it's a lie of Sauron, because so with the Mithril, and I've read some interviews from like the showrunners and stuff, and the more you think about it, like the whole idea of the Mithril origin story is good and evil working together to create something stronger and something better. And what is Sauron proposing? Like that's exactly what he's proposing when he's pitching his idea to Galadriel. And like even in Tolkien's, in the actual book, like his whole motive, the way that he approaches the elves when he's trying to seduce the Eldar is like, you know, we both love Middle Earth. Why don't we work together to make it better? And so for the Mithril origin story to be so similar, and then when you bring in Touch the Darkness, which is like collaborate the dark, you know, light and dark working together, which doesn't work for Tolkien. I'm really hoping that it's all been some kind of fabrication of Sauron. If it ends up being true in universe, I'm going to be really unhappy, honestly. But the more I think about it, the more I can kind of see how I'm at least hoping that I've kind of caught on to where they're going with it. But like at face value, I really don't like it.
Now explain that, because I'm kind of lost when you say you didn't like
Okay,
touch the darkness.
So like
where do you think it's going then? Like what does it mean, and where do you hope it's going?
So when Finrod is talking about touching the darkness, I think it means something different from when Sauron is saying touch the darkness later. And that kind of caught me up, because I feel like that maybe is something difficult for an audience to have the same phrase meaning two different things. But like, I think when Finrod says it, he's kind of like, you have to know what darkness is in order to discern the light, which I'm still not sure if that's good advice, but I think that's what it's meant to mean. But then when Sauron is saying it to Galadriel later, I think he's like, you need to cooperate with the darkness in order to bring about positive change. And I think that's allegedly what the entire Mithril origin story is supposed to be. It's darkness and evil and good working together to create something special. So like they're like the same thing happening. So that's kind of why I'm hoping it's Sauron or maybe Morgoth. I don't know. But yeah, once again, I don't like it as a truth. And the showrunners have emphasized a couple of times that they've brought up over and over, like kind of winking, like, yeah, this might be apocryphal, you know. So I'm really hoping it is.
On the showrunners thing, you got to meet them on some of the wonderful trips that Amazon invited a bunch of people to. Now that you've seen the show, you met them, it instilled confidence in the show. Now that you've seen the show, now you've seen it 10 times. How is your confidence level in them?
It's hard to say because I feel like meeting them has definitely like endeared me to them because they're really nice guys. And so I feel confident. Like they definitely seem like they know their Tolkien and they know what their vision is, but I'm still nervous about if they're going to be able to convey what their vision is because I'm really like in the dark still on a lot of it. But I think they seem like they're still pretty new and they're really like excitable. And I appreciate that because they seem very excited about what they're doing, really passionate. But I just remain nervous. And I think I'm going to remain nervous until like, season 5 wrapped. And then I can finally like take a deep breath and relax after that.
But on this darkness stuff, the light touching the darkness, don't you think that's kind of a more religious overtone? Or is there any allegory to Catholicism? I mean, we all know Tolkien was a hardcore Catholic. Do you think the writers are leaning in to something that's more Catholic and less Middle Earth?
I don't think. Well, if you want to talk about Catholicism, I feel like Tolkien's Catholicism was something that he was like so steeped in that it kind of is something that's woven into Middle Earth. So I don't know if you can separate them that much when it comes to like philosophy, even though there's a lot of differences, but I think at the core it's very similar. But the touch the darkness thing, I think you can approach it from a Catholic perspective where you can think of like Christ had to descend into the darkness in order to overcome it. And that's very much like what you see with Frodo having to basically, he has to go to Mount Doom, which is like the worst place in the whole world, and die to himself in order for the, evil to be destroyed. So like, that's a really easy to see. It's not an allegory, but it's a applicability. But where they're going with the touch the darkness in the show, I don't really know. It doesn't feel super Catholic to me.
Okay.
And I'm like, once again, I don't know, like I still, once again, don't really buy it. And I'm still hoping that it's like not meant to be taken at face value.
Cliff likes to bring up, and I think he just jumped off. We're just having a bunch of technical things today. Cliff likes to keep asking for the showrunners to talk. Just tell us, like, tell us what you're doing. And I think there are people in the chat room saying, do you think a lot of these questions and unresolved issues that us loyal fans that want to be champions of the show, do you think if the showrunners were just a little more open and forthwith with like what they're doing, do you want them to be more accessible versus, holding the secret so you'll have a good time watching?
I don't know. I was thinking about that today because even thinking about my little theory about the Mithril and the touch the darkness, how I kind of see it as all being created. Like if I could ask them right now, I don't think I would, because I want to wait and see how the show plays out. And I just like at this point the way that I approach the Rings of Power is that it's more like fan fiction, but I don't mean that in like a derogatory sense. I mean that in like someone's taking an original, like a canon story, and they're adding to it and making their own story out of it, which I think that's what they're doing. And so I completely lost my train of thought there. But I don't know. I want them to tell the story that they're telling because I've already kind of separated it from the books. It's something different at this point. So like, I feel like a lot of the like stress that I had before is kind of gone now because I know that it's going to be something separate. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, I think what people in the chat room are getting at is Tolkien fandom is very special and very unique, and we all share a love of Tolkien and the source and the world building. And I think one thing Peter Jackson did very well is with those behind the scenes videos is he brought us along. And throughout all 6 movies that Peter did, he was there saying, yes, we're changing it. This is why we're changing it. This is, the corner that we had backed ourselves into. We really need, and we think the movie is better for it. And also we think it's true to Tolkien for these reasons. So I think the accessibility, basically Peter said, Peter was just telling us all along the way that this is where we're going. This is what we're doing, and brought us along. I think that's different than what Rings of Power is doing, which is those guys are untouchable. You can't report on anything that they've told you. They're not going to say anything. They're not going to tell us what they're doing, why they're doing it, or where we're going. And they want this, I think, what was the quote? They were surprised that fans aren't willing to go on the journey of discovery with Galadriel. Like, they were surprised on that.
I think more openness would go a long way. Like, I know they've done a lot of press with the major news outlets. I think if they were to do interviews with like someone like Nerd of the Rings, like he has a massive platform and he's a super Tolkien guy. So I think if they were to do more press or just more conversations with people who both have a platform and actually know their stuff, I think that would go a long way. But I also think all of the secrecy that we had to deal with last year, being invited to stuff and then not being allowed to say anything, created a real atmosphere of distrust for us and for them and within the whole community. So I think that kind of backfired in a way where now if they were to do something like that again, no one's going to listen to us. They're just going to call me a shill and not listen to anything that I have to say. So I feel like if they are going to try to connect with fans, they're going to have to do it on some kind of wide scale way. But practically, I don't know how they would do that.
Cliff,
I can understand.
Do you agree with that, Cliff? You got some of that shill talk, didn't you?
I still get it. I mean, I'm on the air every week on Tuesday, talking about what I like and what I dislike, because it was a mixed bag. I have never used a bigger word in my life than ambivalence, and I rely on that word, ambivalence, over and over and over again when I talk publicly about Rings of Power Season 1. And it is having that internal dynamic of wanting to enjoy it, really wanting to enjoy it more than I really did enjoy it, that I'm still trying to reconcile. And Caitlin, I think I recognized exactly what you were saying in the opening statements of your video. Really. I really relate to that.
Do you think they're hiding from the fans? The chat room is saying they can't hide from the fans forever.
They seem to think they can. I don't know.
No,
they
can't.
All of their social media, the Rings of Power Twitter account has the impression that it's giving me is that somebody forgot the password and they can't get back in because they haven't tweeted in over a month. They didn't say anything about Tolkien Reading Day. They didn't say anything about the 6-month anniversary of the finale. If I was their social media manager, those are easy. That's an easy thing to post about.
Yeah, and they could say do a marathon watch along with on Twitch, with Corey or something.
So to me, it seems like they're the impression I'm getting is that they're lying low and reevaluating and kind of trying to figure out what to do next. And so I hope moving forward that they will be I don't want them to spoil the show. I want there to still be an element of waiting and seeing what happens. But if they were able to hold our hand as we're walking on this journey, because it's almost like I said in my video, I feel like I'm a Numenorian, and they're requiring this blind trust of me, when right. I don't know what my fate is, but you guys know what you're doing. So it's very frustrating on my end to get called a shill all day long for this show that I like, but that I also have issues with. And then for there to be like radio silence from like the show itself is just like is kind of a frustrating experience.
Well, what shocked me the most about your review is its opening line is "Don't be mad." Like, what has Amazon marketing wrought when the opening line in all of our reviews, it was in Matt's too as well, which is "Don't be mad. I'm not a shill. Here's my credentials and my bona fides." And Cliff has to remind everybody every week how he's not a shill. Like, I think you're right. There is something about the secrecy is doing nobody favors.
Right.
Indeed.
It just kind of creates a frustrating atmosphere for everyone involved, I think. But like, I get it. I get you don't want your whole show to be spoiled. But I think if they were able to help us out, just like giving us some kind of information. I know you don't want to give away everything, but like, I don't know. You've got a pretty big fan base for the show, and their social media is just like totally dead. They could be giving us some behind the scenes, or they could be, I don't know, doing anything.
We've heard a few reviews, and I think, Cliff, you've said as much, that, you know, this idea that the fact that they keep people involved in the production, whether it's the showrunners or the producers or the talent, keep saying, or the studio brass keep saying stuff like, well, people that hate the show are always going to hate it. Lumping criticism in with the haters is just, that's not it.
That's real cringe right there. And it's intellectually dishonest.
Yeah, I think it requires some humility to recognize that, like, you're creating art, and art is subjective. Not everyone's going to like it, and not everyone needs to like it. And if you don't have the level of humility that is required for that, to not, you know, take it personally or act like everyone who doesn't like your show is just, you know, trash, who never was going to like it before. Like, I don't know, you need to just like do some inward thinking, because I don't know, there are tons of people who wanted to like the show and didn't, or like, I really liked the show, but I still have at least questions. So I don't know. I think a little humility would go a long way, especially in interviews, because there have been so many interviews where someone will be like, and we noticed you deviated from the lore in X, Y, and Z. And they'll be like, but did we? But did we? Because you don't know as much as we do. And we're like, yeah, we don't. Like, help us out. Like, so that, when those responses like that really frustrate me, because if we could all be going on this journey together, that would be really nice. But instead it's like, you know, they're off on their way, and they're like taunting us almost. Like, I don't know. It just gets irritating.
That's a good way of putting it. You mentioned
Indeed.
You know,
no, go ahead, Justin. I was just going to ask our guest about the whole Halbrand thing, and how correctly and wonderfully you articulated, Caitlin, that there's a mystery. You said you have questions, and that was one of the questions you said in your video review. I have that exact same question. Why create a Halbrand character at all when Anatar is right there? When Tolkien has already given us the character that would create the greatest engine of narrative drama. Why create this whole new Halbrand? I have the same question too. I really do.
Yeah, that's one of those things where I just, like, I don't see any good answer. I kind of wonder if they're going to somehow introduce Anatar next season. But even if that happens, then I'm still wondering why. Like, why did you need Galadriel to become besties with a random human guy, and you need her to help him reestablish his kingdom? Like, what does that have to do with anything when she's already around Anatar and Eregion? Her husband is also there. So if you want tension between them, and you want them to have this kind of like non-romantic romance, like, it's right there. Yep. So it doesn't make sense to me. It felt like they were just pulling stuff out of nowhere. I don't know.
What's this gaslight don't gaslight your audience? What do you mean?
That's Haladriel. I didn't know we were on that topic yet.
Oh, yeah, well, I was going to save that for last, but since we're talking about Halbrand right now, everyone that is a loyal viewer of the show knows where I stand on the issue, and I've given you guys all of the evidence over the last 6 weeks, especially where there's been new evidence proving that it was the last minute change. But so, where do you stand, T with Tolkien, on Haladriel?
Okay, so I said in my video, at first I hated it when he was human Halbrand. I was like, this is so dumb. Why would, I was thinking, oh, it's this like puppy-eyed human falling in love with Galadriel. Okay, everyone falls in love with Galadriel. That's fine. Then when it turned out that he was Sauron, I felt like, oh, this is actually really interesting because, he's older than the earth. She's older than the sun. Like it says in the book, that Sauron perceived her as his greatest rival. So there's a lot of stuff that could happen in a relationship with them. But
yes, that's true, because Sauron has a full historical awareness of Feanor and the Oath and all the sins of the Noldor, as you mentioned in your video.
Right. And so I liked that dynamic. I don't understand. To me, it was super obvious that it was meant to be romantic. There's heavy breathing subtitles left and right. There's him making little flirty eyes at her constantly. There were 5 times where I thought they were going to kiss, and I was mad about it. I was like, I hate this. What are they doing here? Where is her husband? What is any of this going on? And I was just furious the whole season because it was so clear. They, remember before the season came out, they did that rom-com trailer that became infamous, where it was I don't even remember, but it was everyone dubbed it the rom-com teaser. And he's being called her love interest in the press. This was so clearly set up as a romance. And then, okay, after the reveal comes out, we have everyone and their brother doing an interview. Oh, actually, it wasn't meant to be romantic. Okay, then why did you write it like that? I just think it does a disservice to your audience because, I know there's a lot of people who are like, oh, I didn't see it was romantic at all. I'm like, do you talk to your friends like that? I don't know. Do you look at your friends like that? Do you
All right. Well, this is the ongoing debate that Cliff and I have had before the show even come out for the last 3 years when we started reporting on these rumors that Sauron and Galadriel will hook up. I'm all for it. Again, Rivendell, CW show,
those rumors,
messy things. But now that we have the show, do you think season 1 would have been received better or worse if they had not changed their mind and committed to the bit, committed
way worse
to the romance?
It's a bad idea.
No, don't wait. What?
Okay, I really like the idea of Sauron. So you say he can't feel love because he's so evil. That's fine, but she's been pursuing him for 1,000 years or whatever in the show. I like the idea that he's kind of he sees her as his chief rival. It's almost they're not equals, obviously, because he's Maya, but it's almost there's something to it. It's almost they could have been a Thingol and Melian kind of thing. Or you think of the way that Elbereth, in the beginning, Melkor kind of had a thing for Elbereth and she rejected him. So I think what they were maybe going for was a similar idea with them. And I like all of that, but I'm glad that they didn't go very far with it in the show itself because I don't know. It's something. I think it's something that's better left as an idea rather than I don't know. I just don't want it to go too far. I don't know how to explain it.
I feel like I'm the guy in the Jurassic Park dinner scene where I'm the only one that likes the idea of Jurassic Park and everybody else is like, this is the stupidest, scariest thing anyone's ever. And I'm the lawyer. I'm the blood-sucking lawyer.
No,
Look,
I don't know how to explain it. I really like the idea, because I also feel like you can kind of fit it in the cracks of what Tolkien wrote. Like when, I don't know, there are probably like 50 different things you could point to where you're like, he's clearly obsessed with her. Or you could think of like, you know, the showrunners mentioned this quote where she's like, you know, I perceive the Dark Lord's mind and he's always trying to get into my mind. Like, so they clearly have some kind of strained relationship, but the way that they wrote it as being romantic, like clearly, and then denying it afterwards, I think it was kind of embarrassing. It seems like maybe they got embarrassed or nervous about it. So then they decided to like gaslight their whole audience by being like, what are you talking about? That wasn't romantic at all. When I've read article after article describing him as her love interest, or, you know, talking about their romantic tension. Like, I don't know. I just think it's kind of irritating.
Well, I think I don't think it's gaslighting, to be fair. I think they literally listened to the fans and changed their mind at the last minute. Again, Bear McCreary admits in his last podcast, or his last article, that there was a significant scoring change in the theme of the scene where Galadriel, or Sauron, reveals himself to Galadriel, and he had to change that at the last minute. And what we've heard is between the September 2nd premiere of season 1, episode 1 and 2, and 6 weeks later, episode 7 coming out, that's 6 weeks. That's a month and a half where they literally sent it back to the showrunners and the editor and Bear McCreary and said, fix this. Like, we can't have them hook up. And it was a total fix. So I don't think it was a gaslight. I think when the show started,
it is, because you have the finished product that they gave to us, and they're flirting for 7 episodes, and then to be like, no, they weren't flirting.
I think they changed their mind though. I think literally, like, for those first 6 episodes, that was the show they delivered and put on the air. But while that was airing for 6 weeks, they changed episodes 7 and 8, like, and tried to Windex that off. So I don't know if it's intentional gaslight or more just they're trying hard to correct the record.
Backtracking, I feel like.
Yes.
It just becomes irritating because I feel like, at least in like Star Wars fan communities, I feel like people who are a big fan of like the Kylo Ren and Rey, like Reylo theme idea, like I feel like they, like, people who are fans of that got a lot of like, I don't know, flack from other fans. And it, like, I wasn't really involved in like Star Wars stuff, but just seeing it from the outside was really irritating. And I feel like the same thing is kind of going to happen with fans of Galadriel, because people are like, what are you talking about? You're crazy. This doesn't exist. You're so stupid. Like, this isn't romantic at all. Like, I don't know, like stuff. And then when the showrunners and the actors are kind of like, yes, it's a cosmic connection, there's no romance. Like, I don't know. It just like irritates me. Like, I feel like I've said it irritates me like 800 times.
Well, I think this goes back to what we were just discussing earlier, which is, I wish the showrunners would just be more forthcoming, admit to their mistakes, be a little bit more humble, say, we admit they missed the mark with fans on season 1, admit that they changed it last minute. You know how far that would go among all of us to say, you know what? We read what you guys were putting out on the internet, and we said, you're right. The fans are right. We got to fix this. If they just
didn't really do that though, because like in the end of the day, I want to see the story that they want to tell. You know, I don't want them to be constantly reworking along the lines. Like, I just want them to tell their story, and if I don't like it, that's fine. But it's their story. Like, I want them at the end of the day to be proud of the story that they tell. So I don't really like the idea of them constantly reworking it, even if I'm happier with the reworked product. Like,
I agree with that. And I also have a strong memory of how weird it seemed that Thingol was having a relationship with Melian. And I always thought those dynamics were a bit weird, that an angelic being would hunker down into a mortal form just to have a relationship with an elf over, centuries. So in light of the idea that Professor Tolkien, at least one time, was ready to explore the relationship between a Maiar and one of the Noldor, I can understand, I guess, the temptation to try to work out a dynamic relationship between Sauron and Galadriel, as it would be one of the most, well, it could be very interesting to watch, but it would never, I don't think it would ever have been romantic in Professor Tolkien's mind. Why would it occur to the showrunners to make it romantic in their minds when Professor Tolkien did not? I mean, what the kind of seduction that Professor Tolkien was writing about with Anatar was completely G-rated. I mean, G-rated seduction. Seduction of the mind and seduction of tantalizing intellectual ideas and, of course, metaphysical ideas. Anatar would have been a much more interesting and pretty aggressive villain that all of us at home would be like, oh, look at Sauron go. Look at how far he's willing to go to pull one over on these poor people and make things really difficult for Celebrimbor. And look at these interesting conversations we're having about elves and how they went to live and create kingdoms in Middle-earth versus going back to Valinor, which is their constant calling. So, I see the larger playbox, the big sandbox, if you will, of all the things that they're trying to do, but I question the wisdom behind pushing the Sauron and Galadriel relationship in the romantic direction that they did, because Professor Tolkien wrote about a very different kind of seduction that happened between Anatar and Celebrimbor. I mean, Caitlin, you kind of get where I'm going with this, maybe?
Yeah. I think, and that's why I appreciate it, as Justin kind of says that that they allegedly altered it to tone down the romantic angle. Like, I'm glad they did that with the final product, but I don't know, like, it still was there to me. And so then to say it wasn't there, I just thought was a bit frustrating.
So what have you heard the rumors that season 2 is basically Sauron, the same story from his perspective? What we've heard is, Sauron opens up season 2 with like, hello, you know me. You might want to know how I got here. Yeah, like, do you like the idea of them basically retelling the events of season 1 from Sauron's perspective and correcting the record?
I would like if they did that in like 15 minutes, but if it's
it's going to be many seasons episodes. No,
you mentioned Galadriel
that reminds me of the Prisoner of Azkaban movie, isn't that the third Harry Potter movie? Yeah. Where they basically retell the whole story halfway through the movie, and I hated that movie because, like, I get why you want to do that as a storytelling device, but to have to relive the same story over with slight changes, I really don't enjoy that. So I would hope that, like, I imagine he's going to be like, I imagine that it's going to open up with him being like, nothing is evil in the beginning, not even me. So that's my hope. And then he'll be like, here's my, half of the story. Here's how I got on this raft. And then it'll maybe cut to
in your review that's now posted on YouTube, you mention you talk about Galadriel as an unreliable narrator. Would that make Sauron is Sauron an unreliable narrator that we can even trust if that is how season 2 opens? I guess, do we want unreliable narrators, or like,
I don't know if we can we trust anyone, really? I don't know. Well, with Galadriel, it fits with her character because we know when she's staying with Melian, she kind of conveniently leaves out Noldorin crimes, and then she does kind of the same thing in the prologue to season 1. And I don't know if they just did that because they were short on time and they didn't want to have to explain everything, or if it was meant for her to be unreliable. I'm not sure. I'd say, like, I'm 50-50 on that. I mean, obviously Sauron is the deceiver, so you can't really trust anything he says. But I don't know what angle they would take with that.
Should Sauron, in a show called Rings of Power, should Sauron be the main protagonist? Should he be the hero of his own story? Should we be watching his show?
I think people will be pretty unhappy with that. They kind of seemed like they were already unhappy with that ideas already, just because he is the bad guy. I like him being one of the main characters, but I don't know if we should be too sympathetic for him because that might not end well.
Interesting. I want to respond to someone in the chat room. Sharon C is on YouTube and says, are we supposed to trust these writers who wanted a Days of Our Lives romance? Well, first off, I'll say I trust the writers because these writers come from Better Call Saul and a wonderful dark relationship between Jimmy and Kim. You want to talk about dark relationships of two people that are the worst for each other? Like, they bring out the worst in each other and they love each other for it. That's Better Call Saul's Jimmy and Kim. Also in the writer's room is people from Hannibal. Now, Hannibal has an entire subtext of the title character is the bad guy. He's Hannibal, just like the Lord of the Rings is Sauron. He literally is the Lord of the Rings. So hiring writers from Hannibal and exploring and implying some dark relationships, because that's what the Hannibal TV show is all about. This is their, will they, won't they, between Hannibal and his antagonist, the FBI agent that's trying to, control him or capture him or whatever like that. And Richard Armitage was also in that show as the Red Dragon. So, and there's a whole, not kind of sexual subtext, but not really, but it's a relationship subtext. So there definitely was. This show hired some of the best writers in TV at some of the best shows and darkest shows that explore dark relationships. So
yeah, and like I don't imagine or want some kind of, Sauron and Galadriel live happily ever after, because A, that's never going to happen, and B, like, I don't know, it's not going to happen. But I like the idea of him being kind of like obsessed with Galadriel, and then her being like, this is my crazy ex-boyfriend. Like something like that moving forward. Like, I imagine they're going to interact again, and I don't think they're going to get closer. I think they're just going to, like, things will become more strained between them. And I think that's interesting. I don't know.
I have a question on this Saint Michael photo. I want to respond to someone in the chat room. It says, do you think the writers being stuck in the U.S. while they were shooting in New Zealand affected the show? Yes. I think because none of the writers were in New Zealand, zero, it affected the show. Television needs to have writers on set. The best TV shows always have the writers on set. And the fact that they didn't, that means Patrick McKay and J.D. Payne were rewriting the entire show by themselves in New Zealand, even though they had cast changes, script changes. They had to go from 10 episodes to 8 episodes. So yeah. Payne and McKay are responsible for season 1, basically.
Well, they had so many unexpected challenges. Like, who could have predicted a worldwide pandemic, So they were working through like a really difficult time. So I like to take that into account when I'm thinking about season 1 as well. And I hope that moving forward, now that we've got a lot of the restrictions and things kind of behind us, that hopefully things will kind of be more tightly packaged and cohesive, because it's definitely, I'm just sure it was kind of chaotic for them and that they were scrambling a lot of the times.
I'm encouraged that Jennifer Hutchinson is in the UK on set for season 2 right now.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that will help. That will help a great deal. Yes.
So this Saint Michael pose, what's going on with this? You took issue with this classic photo of Saint Michael. It's an obvious ripoff. Not ripoff.
It's not homage, a ripoff, yeah.
Homage, as they say.
Well, the showrunners had actually been in the press talking a great deal about how pre-Raphaelite paintings and really specific great works of illustration and painting had influenced a lot of their camera work and the compositions. And anybody who is looking at this material from a spiritual and Catholic perspective will recognize some of these famous iconographic images that they're also familiar with from church teachings. And it is not a mistake that it's in there. Caitlin, please, I'll let you go ahead and I'll let you go ahead and say.
But on this particular photo, you say they did it wrong.
I don't know. So this is, again, I think I said this in my review. Like, I know my mind is going to change and I could be wrong. But so for me, every single one of the Sauron hints with Halbrand was so glaringly obvious that it felt like a misdirection. But then when we got to this moment, I was like, oh, he can't be Sauron because Saint Michael is a good guy. And I understand the mindset that they did it. Like, maybe he sees himself as the good guy standing on top of Adar, who to him would be Satan because he's like his number one enemy. So like, I can totally appreciate their perspective. But after they had been throwing so many like super obvious hints for Sauron, like from the right field, like this one felt like totally from left field. And so it felt, I don't know, just like kind of felt like they did a sturdy with that one because it was so different than all the other ones. But I could totally be wrong. It just was something that like irked me for not really any reason that I could explain, I guess.
Well, so it also irked me the way that Finrod is talking about you having to touch the darkness, and I'm so grateful that Caitlin, that you mentioned the fact that there isn't that kind of an equivalence in Professor Tolkien's mind and the way he wrote everything. There is not a moral equivalence to, trying to say that there are qualities of being bad or evil that are helpful or, beneficial to anyone in that regard. You really hit the nail on the head when you said it seems the writers of the show had a disconnect from the nature of evil the way that Tolkien understood it as a Catholic.
Yeah, I think as long with the caveat that if that turns out to be a lie of Sauron, then I will be really happy and I will applaud them because they did that really well. But if they are meaning for these things to be true in universe, I think they should just be a little bit more careful in the future.
Right. And this also points towards the Mithril, that inserted piece of extra mythology about the Mithril.
Yeah, and they called it apocryphal in the show, so I'm really leaning onto that one word I'm really, really hoping that it truly is apocryphal because I'll be really unhappy if it isn't.
But what do you mean? What did you mean when you talked about the dualism and that evil and good are not diametric opposites?
Yeah, so I felt like they were presenting good and evil as almost like a Star Wars, like, you've got the good side of the Force and I'm not super good on Star Wars vocabulary, but you have dark and you have good and they're kind of opposing and you need balance. But for Tolkien, evil is always going to be either the corruption of something good or the deprivation of something good. So there's no, like we have at the beginning of the show, nothing is evil in the beginning. Like things aren't made evil and evil isn't something that exists on its own. It's always going to be like a distortion or a lack of good. So that was something where I felt like it just wasn't quite right.
Cliff, did you pick up on that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, the only conversation that I had when one of the showrunners bumped into me on the train was, I want to talk about, larger scale metaphysics, not particular characterization or details of the plot. I want to talk about how far your television show is going to cover Professor Tolkien's conceptualization of what drives so much of the Lord of the Rings: death and the pursuit of deathlessness, on the behalf of different characters in different situations dealing with those subjects. Death and the pursuit of deathlessness. And that applies to Sauron. It certainly applies to the Rings of Power and their making, and the way that the elves were seduced by Anatar, the elven smiths of Eregion and Celebrimbor specifically. So, there's something more important. It's okay if you get the details wrong, and Faramir ends up dragging both of the hobbits all the way to Osgiliath. I mean, but if you get the essence of the metaphysics right in your adaptation, that certain characters are fundamentally behaving under a spiritual context that precludes those characters from doing other things. That's the way Tolkien wrote it. There's spiritual demand behind most of his characters' behaviors and choices. Don't you think? And if they don't color that in correctly, even with all wild variations they make on the specifics, still the meat and potatoes of the background of spiritual choices and the dilemma of good and evil not being presented as a duality, but the dilemma that evil is, like you said in your review, evil is always propagating itself. And Tolkien said in his letters that evil is constantly propagating its forces and its willfulness, but it is for naught because it's always laying the ground in the soil for unexpected good to, crop up out of that soil and interrupt what the evil is doing. That's something I was just reading in Tolkien's published letters right before we began the show. So if the showrunners want to get an adaptation of Tolkien right, that essence of what Tolkien was as a spiritual writer, it has to be done right. Don't you think?
Yeah. And I think they took a big risk with season 1, introducing so many of these things that the whole thing kind of hinges on, are these true in universe or not? So like they kind of started things off with a lot of deceptions. And we have Adar saying to Arondir, you have been told many lies of Middle Earth. So are we meant to believe that we are being told many lies of Middle Earth? I feel like at a certain point it just gets too muddy. So I hope with season 2 coming forward, we can kind of be freed of whatever these lies are so that we can just kind of accept the story for what it is, because having to kind of do all of these mental gymnastics, almost how it feels to be like, oh, like, well, maybe this could work if it's X, Y, and Z and follows this path, down 8 different steps, then I get it. Like that becomes very tiring. It's also very fun to kind of theorize, but after a while, it's just like, I want to feel confident in the story that you're telling without having to second guess every single thing that's happening.
And this kind of like, it's all, for me, it's about respecting the fans and respecting your audience. And part of that is respecting our brain energy, as you just said, like respecting our mental health and the gymnastics that we are forced to do or not do. I mean, look at our show today. There's one leaked photo of that new girl with Isildur, and we spent 15 minutes saying, is she not, will she, won't she? And based on the show we've already seen, she could be just a throwaway character that's on screen for 3 minutes and we never see her again, right? She just points the way in a forest and that's it. So I think part of respecting the audience is not trying to trick us, and more overall, like with this casting stuff, just tell us who these new actors are. Like you're not saving anything and you're not losing anything by...
I think it's almost going to cause them problems if they don't announce it soon, because so many people have already decided that Callum Lynch, is that his name? Yeah. Is going to be Celeborn. So at this point, like if he's not Celeborn, there are going to be tons of people who are upset, because we've got not I haven't really, but like I've seen a lot of people get like personally attached to the idea. So I think the longer that keep us in the dark, the farther we're going to get on our own little rabbit trails and theories, and we're going to get attached to them. And then there's the fear that the story they're going to give us isn't going to be able to live up to the story that we've created while we've been in the dark.
Callum Lynch is the perfect example of it's not that we'll get angry and there will be hundreds of YouTube videos criticizing the show over, them changing the character. We just won't care anymore. Like we're so invested in, these fan casts that we have with these actors and who they're maybe playing, that when they finally announce who the characters are for the cast, we're just like, all right, that's not what I thought. Next. Like, we just won't care.
And like, I know, again, they need to be careful, and you can see them, they're trying to they seem to have a media strategy of some sort that they seem to be sticking to, where they're kind of just trickling things out really, really slowly. So I understand that they have a schedule and things that they want to go with, but just giving us some information, I think would help. It would be really nice.
Cliff, someone in the chat room, Sharon says in the chat room, the showrunners may think that it feels like the showrunners are pulling a David Lynch, and his ability to make you, the viewer, question whether you're watching something that's real or an alternate reality. Do you understand that?
I do, because in so many of David Lynch's works, and most notably in Best Picture winner Mulholland Drive, and in Twin Peaks, there is always the dream logic that David Lynch always plays with, that the characters are in situations that might not be grounded in reality. They might be grounded in hallucinations or in dreams or in places of subconscious visual guesswork. And that's why David Lynch is famous, for playing with those bizarre possibilities. But that's certainly not the approach that you would take to, a J.R.R. Tolkien fantasy, a sword and sorcery fantasy. That's not the way Professor Tolkien ever approached it.
That type of storytelling has no business in Middle-earth. But Caitlin, what were you going to say?
Right. It's just the fact that we're even having to question these things. It gets so tiresome. Like, I just want to watch the show and enjoy it. I don't want to, I've spent 6 months theorizing about this. I'm tired. I just want to, it's fun for a while, but at a certain point, I just want to be like, yeah, I understand the show. I still don't understand the show. And is it because they're super geniuses who've crafted a masterpiece that has all of these layers and misdirects? Or is it because they are on the other side of the spectrum and because they made a lot of mistakes? I have no idea. It's so hard to know, because so much of it is super confusing. And I don't know why. So it's just at a certain point, it gets so tiring. But I also think
that's great that you said that. Thank you, because I keep saying it's not their job to confuse us. It is not their job to puzzle us and mystify us and leave us stammering in confusion. It's their job to make a great adaptation of Tolkien and to entertain us. Right?
Right. And I don't want to be condescending to them about it and be you're just here to entertain me. I appreciate that they're here to tell a story that's gonna make you think and ponder things, and I feel like we probably have a different perspective than the average viewer, because I'm living and breathing Tolkien every day, with Tolkien stuff. So it's probably more intense for me than it is for just, someone who watched the show once and was done with it. But for me, I just get kind of tired.
Monica in the chat room says, agree with you. She agrees with you, T of Tolkien. I want to be immersed in the story effortlessly.
Yeah, that would be so nice. Instead of it's just kind of a stressful show to watch. And I think a lot of that is because Tolkien means so much to us that we're worried that it's going to go off the deep end. And with a lot of things that happened in this season, it's like they walked you up to the line and were like, we could go off the deep end with this. And then they didn't ultimately, but then you're kind of stressed out about everything that they do. Why did you put Galadriel on a boat to Valinor? And then why did you have her go to Numenor? I just feel like they're just going in every direction that it gets to the point where you're feeling so disoriented and stressed out that because anything could happen. Sauron and Galadriel together. Like a year ago, if you would have told me that was happening in a TV show, I would have never believed you. Like
you didn't believe me. I thought I told you in London.
You probably did, and I didn't believe you. But like I have it right here on my wall, and it's on your T-shirt. Like if you would have talked to me a year ago, I would have been like, "You're crazy." But that happened. Like what? It's hard to know, like, what kind of a world do we live in where these things are happening? I feel like anything could happen at this point.
I tell you, Nerd of the Rings and Corey, the Tolkien professor, absolutely did not want to believe me at all.
I didn't either. You were even telling me how it ended, like, the entire season, and I was like, absolutely not, Justin. Like, I don't believe you at all. Like, and then you were right.
I tried to warn you. I tried to give you as much...
I didn't believe you.
Too funny.
Have you heard Cliff's ultimate fix for season 1, which is replace everything that happens to Galadriel with Celebrimbor? From put Celebrimbor on the boat, Celebrimbor strikes up a relationship with Sauron. What do you think?
That wasn't my idea. I never said that.
She's a more interesting character than Celebrimbor to me. Maybe just because she's a woman. I don't know.
Don't the books like explore like Sauron and Celebrimbor have a deeper relationship?
Isn't that only in Eregion though?
Yep, only in Eregion. I had actually originally speculated it would have been if we want to talk about redemptive Sauron and anybody looking at that story. Why don't you put Sauron on the boat? Why wasn't it Sauron who was summoned back to face the judgment of Manwë?
You don't know how he got in the sea. So that could have been. I guess we don't yet. That's one of those things is like, it's so hard because I have all these questions, but you know, we might find out. And then in 2 years, we might feel really silly for arguing about this for so long.
What was, and were you the one, Caitlin, that sent me that photo of what Sauron wears in Eregion and what he's wearing on the raft?
Do you have that?
Let me see if I can bring it up.
That freaked me out when I saw that.
Is it on Twitter? Is it on your Twitter?
I sent it to you on WhatsApp.
Okay. Explain what's going on.
So there was a really long, I found someone shared with me a really long blog post. I don't know if you have the link. And I didn't read the whole blog post, but there were a lot of like side-by-side images of parallels. And there was an image of Halbrand in his outfit in Eregion, and then it's Halbrand in his raft tunic. And they almost look like the same tunic. And when I saw that, I was like, I had to like sit down for a minute because you can see the detailing in them is very similar. So it almost looks like he's wearing the same tunic that has now been destroyed. So that would kind of make it seem like this was all some kind of dream or something. I'm not totally sure what the premise of the blog post was, but I just saw that image. I don't know if Justin has it.
I'm bringing it up right now. So wait, so I guess can you like, what are you trying to say? Like,
I don't know. I just saw it and it freaked me out.
In what way? That the timeline that we're shown in season 1 is not in order? Are you saying season 1 we're watching out of order?
So what it is that just doesn't make any sense because I don't understand where they're going with it at all. That's why it freaked me out because it was uncanny how similar, because you can see he has like the detailing going down right here. You can see it. I think it's on the sleeves or something. And I don't know if.
Yeah, you can see that there is like a diamond shape in his chest. We've got it on screen right now. You can see where he's ripped off the sleeves of the shirt he was wearing so that the obvious elvish armband is no longer present.
But it was just the detailing going down the front where it has that similar shape that it just, I don't know. I have no idea what it could mean. But when I saw it, I thought, this is crazy.
I mean, the implication is what we see in the show of Sauron making a ring with Celebrimbor in episode 8 happens chronologically before the raft scene.
Or like I joked on Twitter that this whole season was just Celeborn's bad dream. That could also be the case.
Oh wow. Oh wow. Oh boy.
But it could possibly mean that I just thought, like,
why would the show need to have such an egregious and cheap way to retcon and get out? If you've made a commitment, you've made a commitment to telling the story, right?
I think that's the thing. It's hard to trust anything that's happening. I feel like this show has made me like question reality.
And that's not a Tolkien story. Like, Tolkien didn't write his books where you're questioning your own reality.
Yeah, Tolkien's books are very comforting, even though there's kinslaying and, giant evil spiders killing the trees. Like, there's still like a sense of comfort that you can get. And like a lot of Rings of Power has that. And I think that's why they made sure to include the Harfoots, because they add that. It's almost like comic relief, but it's not meant to be comedic. It's meant to just be like relief from the really dark storylines. I think that's what they were trying to do with the Harfoots. But just so much of the show has me like I feel like I'm going to go to therapy and send Amazon my therapy bill for this.
I love it. Absolutely.
I think you're right. You're right about the Harfoots. Like, of course you can't do a Lord of the Rings show without halflings. They bring the Harfoots in for some, but then rather than being comforting, all the Harfoots are like back of the line. Yeah. Leave them for
You're
dead.
Dead to me.
Let the wolves go.
Yeah, that was kind of an odd thing. Yeah.
Well, Wheat Bix in the chat room says, "Hey T, thanks for talking Tolkien with us today. This has been a wonderful, wonderful chat.
It really has been wonderful. Very invigorating.
What are you most looking forward to in season 2, and what are you most fearful for in season 2?
I'm really looking forward to hopefully getting a backstory for Sauron. I think because I've honestly had so much time to think about it that I've like written the whole first episode in my head. And so I would like to see I really want them to kind of set up a parallel. And they've kind of said as much that his beginning scenes are going to be similar to Galadriel. So I would really like to see something starting out with Sauron not being evil in the beginning. Maybe we see him as Myron, the Admirable.
Do you think he's the red-haired kid in the prologue?
That would be too cool. I don't think they did that. No, I think that would be really, really neat. I mean, we all obviously he's a Maya, so he was never a kid, but he could have taken the form of a kid. That does pose like a strange, ethical question with that, but he's a bad guy, I guess. So that would have been, I think, something like that, like seeing him in Valinor would be really fun. I would be excited about that, and just kind of seeing his beginning as not being evil to then becoming evil. Just like a Sauron backstory. And then I want to see his reunion with Adar, even though it's going to be a different actor. I think that would be really exciting. And I don't know. I'm not really excited to see anything else because I know it's all going to be devastating. I've seen too many of the leaks that I just know I'm going to be like my heart will just be crushed probably, which is funny because the showrunner said over and over, we don't want to do peak bleak, but they picked the Second Age to write a show about. There's nothing happy that happens this whole Second Age.
And what did we report for the last couple weeks? If Sack of Aragion is happening at the end of season 2, I mean, the end of season 2 is the end of certain characters that we all love. in their chaise lounge.
Yeah, when I actually I can't even, I mean, I have to see the leaks because it's kind of my job, I guess, but I wish I didn't because they make me so like deeply sad. I know that I'm gonna be devastated by this season.
And I'm looking forward to that. I think, honestly, the tragedy that goes with the Second Age stuff might surprise a lot of the other Lord of the Rings fans who've never read much of the other books.
Mm-hmm.
They might be surprised what other type of energy is in those stories because they've never read them. So there's a big audience that's going to touch down with this type of darker, tragic stuff that Tolkien did so well in the Silmarillion and in other stories. And this TV show is an opportunity for them to get it right. But what lessons do we learn from those tragedies? And what lessons do we learn from other characters' moral mistakes? That's where the real storytelling is, I think.
Yeah, well, I'm assuming if we have the sack of Eregion, then we're going to have the forging of the One Ring before then. So that's another one that I hope that they do it justice. Because I felt like the forging of the Three Rings was kind of rushed at the, they're like, you have to get this in before the season ends. So I hope they do. I hope they make it as, devastating as it is. So
yeah,
I just have such high expectations for this. So I just worry that I'm going to be disappointed. But I guess ultimately, like, in a sense, you're going to be disappointed no matter what, because nothing is ever going to live up to your expectations in your own mind, the way that you interpret a book. But I'm also excited to see their take on it.
Yeah. I mean, I write sins, not tragedies. But, like, I wish Amazon would just lean into this expectation. It's like, just bring us along for the ride a little bit more. Let the showrunners talk a little bit more. Tell us who the cast, what characters they're playing. Like, the energy that we're ready to put forward toward this show can be better spent with actual real information rather than all of us second guessing what these showrunners are and aren't doing, whether they're lying to us on purpose or if there's a plan,
Yep. Yes, absolutely. You hit it on the head. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm sure that it will come to as we get closer to season 2, because we've still got a while before they even probably start press for it. But I do hope that they are reevaluating their strategy and that they're going to be kind of taking things into account.
You and Cliff had the chance to meet most of the actors at Comic-Con last year. Given the chance to interview someone at the set for season 2, who's your favorite right now?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really hard. So I feel like Sauron is my favorite character, but I really love Morvith. I feel like she's just such a nice person. Every time I've spoken with her, like, she just like radiates sunshine. So she's such a delight to be around. I don't know. I like everyone on the cast. So, like, everyone who I got to meet was just so friendly and kind that. And I did get to interview Cynthia, who plays Muriel, in November. So I guess maybe I wouldn't interview her again, so she could have some diversity in who interviews her. But I would just really love to talk to anyone because they've all been just, like, I don't know, really friendly and really great.
Yeah, the casting has just been perfect, and they put wonderful people in charge and wonderful people in front of the camera to bring Middle Earth to life. So this has been a wonderful conversation. I recommend everybody check out, after this show, Tea with Tolkien's new 30-minute review of season 1, where she goes a little more in depth on her thoughts and feelings on a bunch of things with season 1 that we just touched on. What is the best way people can support you?
I'm just on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Tea with Tolkien, so they can just find me on there. If they're interested in joining our Discord community, you can sign up at teawithtolkien.com/Discord, and that's where we do all of our book clubs. So we're going to start The Lord of the Rings in June. We just finished reading The Fall of Numenor, so we're taking a little break, and then we're going to start Lord of the Rings in June. And it's been really fun because we do live voice chats in the Discord, and I don't know, we've just had some really great conversations come out of it, and it's been a huge joy for me.
And you have some good resources on your Patreon and website, right?
Yeah, I have a Patreon, but really it's just meant as a means for people to financially support me. I really like to give away my resources for free, so I don't like to put them behind a paywall. So if you do want to support me on Patreon, there really isn't any incentive other than you just, I guess, feeling good about yourself, because I like to have all of my resources for free. They're at teawithtolkien.com. So I have a Silmarillion Reader's Guide, and that just got translated into German, which is super cool. And what else do I have? I have a lot of printables, and I have it's called 30 Days in the Shire. So if you need like a kind of like a reset, like you want to slow down and become more of a hobbit at heart, you've got this little ebook that kind of gives you ideas for that. So there's a lot of stuff on there.
Well, that's so wonderful. Cliff, any final thoughts?
Good stuff. We are again in great company. And because that's what J.R.R. Tolkien does for our community of nerds, all of us, academic fans and pop culture fans, all of us have really, really good company. And I need to look no further than you, my dear Caitlin, for being one of our best and brightest in our wonderful pocket of fandom. Thank you for being with us today.
You're so nice. Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. This is super fun.
Absolutely. You make it easy. It's really lovely to have you here, and you should come in and join the mischief more often. It'd be great to have you anytime.
Sure.
Anytime. And thank you for giving me more of an impetus and more of a fire under my seat so I can write my own review of season 1.
Get on it.
Yes.
You have to have it done before season 2 comes out.
Of course I do. Of course I do. And
Cliff, they're filming season 2 right now. Now's your chance, while they're still filming, to maybe push them in the right direction.
Okay, yes, sure. What a lofty thought. But yeah, sure, I'd be glad to. I'd be glad to help out in any humble way I can.
I'm sure they're interested in hearing your thoughts because you've got so many of them.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Yes, I do. Oh my gosh. And also thanks to the audience here with us in the live chat. Everybody in YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, everybody who's chatting with us on Facebook, and everybody else. It's a fantastic group of people. And thank you for joining us today.
All right, take us out.
It's going to be another week until we meet again. But, we're going to have much more surprises, new guests coming on board to join us, more conversations about not just the Rings of Power, but other books, games, and exciting news and developments in the world of J.R.R. Tolkien. You can find us online at The One Ring Net on all social media. Just take out the dot, The One Ring Net. And me, I'm personally at QuickBeam2000 on Instagram and Twitter. And lovely again to have you, Caitlin, Tea with Tolkien. You can find her online as well. My friends, be gentle with one another. Extra kindness is going to take you extra far. So let's have a little bit more of that. Take really good care of one another. Until next week, Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific time, we'll meet you once again here for another live edition of Torn Tuesday. Until then, good night and good luck. Or better yet, buenos noches y buena suerte. Bye, everybody.